This podcast is brought to you by Penji. Penji is a creative subscription service that gives you access to pre-vetted, agency-trained creatives from all over the world. From graphic design to illustrations to social media management and web development, it's all included for one monthly price. It's time to say goodbye to the hassle of searching for top-notch creative talent. With Penji, you get quality and consistency delivered right to your inbox every day, carefully crafted for you by humans. So meet your new creative team today. Head over to penji.co for more and enter the coupon code located within the podcast show notes.
Alrighty. Hello, everyone, and welcome to the Fully Managed Podcast, the podcast where we discuss marketing and business tips to help assist you on your business journey. I'm your host, Shannon, Penchi's Partnership Coordinator, and I'm joined here today with a very special guest, Philip Howe from Explainify. Thank you so much for joining me.
Yeah, I appreciate it. Thank you for having me.
Thank you. Could you start by introducing yourself? I know I just introduced you, but you might want to do it differently. And can you also tell us a little bit about how you got to this point in your career and anything that you think is relevant in between?
Sure. So I am, I always joke and I say that my title changes every day, just depending on what's needed. But essentially I'm responsible for all things creative that kind of come out of our company, at Explainify. And, at the core, we make animated videos like explainers and things. And so most of my time is usually dedicated to that, and all of the content that we put out. Um, but yeah, I've been with this company for oh my goodness, over 3 years, 3.5 years now. So I love it. Being at a creative agency is just it's life changing. It's one of the best things in the world. We kind of talked about this offline a little bit, but having the freedom to be able to do things that you wouldn't in a normal company setting, like kind of taking that time off at the end of the year, when things slow down and whatnot. So there's just so much that comes with being at an agency that's just super fun, and I love it. I came from another agency before this. It was a little bit different. We did branding, a lot of like promotional products, but that was so fun, so much fun as well. I mean, my educational background is television production. So that's what I went to school for originally. And so being here, it's a little bit more like home, to where it's amazing what designers can do in branding and product design in all of those fields. That is amazing and it's wonderful. I don't think I'm passionate about that as much
Mhm.
as I'm passionate about video and, putting out content, especially to help businesses and help people, share what they're doing, as well. So that's a lot of fun. Um, yeah, I don't really in terms of I mean, kinda how I got here was exactly that. Like, I went to school for television production. I did that for a long time. I just did, like, live sports broadcasts, whether I was just on a camera, I was doing some replay or, you know, uh, a lot of things that just come with those live it was everything. It was, "Can I touch it? Okay, I'll work it." Like, whatever it is, like, I'm just gonna do it and learn, and through that, just developed relationships, that kept me going, and yeah, brought it into the agency world from that, just from a creative side of things. So it wasn't even necessarily, "You're doing this one thing that we need you to do, like, this position that we're gonna hire for." It was just all of the contacts that I was able to make and all of the skills that I was able to learn across everything I was doing in the creative space, for video anyway. And through that was just able to hone different skills and keep moving through. So everything from an APM, so an associate project manager, to a lead, to now doing what I'm doing now, which is being able to oversee all of the creative work that gets done. And so I love it. I love it.
Well, I'm really happy that you enjoy it. That makes me excited to hear. Well, when I love talking to people that enjoy what they're doing, which sometimes you can tell that they don't. You never know. or that they're not as excited as you are about it. Um, well, so could you tell me what is your favorite part of the creative process, or what you, I guess, would do now? I think the creative process might be different since wearer of many hats. Um, but what's your favorite part of your job right now?
Oh, what a tough question to answer. Uh,
All of it.
there are certainly parts that may be less enjoyable than others. I won't lie, but um, honestly, I think once the ideas are on paper, so to speak, and you're able to start visualizing things is kind of one of my favorite parts. When you start bringing it to life and you can see the work of, in my particular case now, it might be seeing the work of what the script writer was able to put together. And all of a sudden now you formed a story around it. And maybe we haven't gotten to animation yet, which is certainly a cool part, like where it all just kind of that's like the bow on top, right? But being able to start seeing it on paper of like, okay, here are the designs, here's the storyboards, here are the sketches of what we think that should look like. And when you get to start working with the client at that point and really start forming what that final product looks like is probably one of my favorite parts for sure. Because the world's your oyster in a sense at that point. You can change anything about it. If you don't like any of it, you can change the whole thing. But more times than not, most of it is wonderful. There's just a few parts that then all of a sudden you get creative juices flowing. And it really gives honestly, it gives the client who may not typically get to do those types of things, right? Because they are typically offloading it for somebody else, whether it's their team or whether they're outsourcing to us. And so getting to involve them even more in that to where now they've got skin in the game, so to speak, of what that final product is. And I think it makes their, journey as our client way more enjoyable. But then on my side, it's super enjoyable because it's just a collaborative process of what can we think of and how can we make that, put that on paper literally.
Okay, well, so there's so much excitement about this process, so I'm going to maybe ask about the other end of the coin. So as a part of this process, what do you think is the most challenging to streamline without kind of stifling creativity? Because I know that obviously there's parts in which you have to kind of regulate so that you're kind of like honing in the creative process rather than, you know, going at it in every which way.
Yeah. So, I mean, we do have, and any creative studio is going to have this to some degree. You have to have your ceiling for
Mhm.
everything that is there. So defined, hey, there's certain complexity that we can do for certain packages that the client may purchase. So that's one thing that already kind of just limits what we can do. And sometimes it's even a great way for the client to go, oh, I can't do that. Well, then let's go to the next package because
Mm.
now that we've talked about that idea, I really like it and I want to go there. And so then it just opens another door that they can go through. But being able to start with, hey, okay, maybe we can't really do characters here. And so let's not frame our ideas around a character, a story driven narrative like that. And so it really does help. We have in our kickoff call with our clients, we go through things like that, which really sets those expectations of okay, here's where we are. That helps to keep things a little bit more kind of what you were saying instead of just pulling anything. We can still work around that. The best I think some of the best work we do is when you're like knocking on the door of like the next package. And
Mm.
but you're still figuring out, okay, but how can we do all of this, within scope of what we have and so that's really how we're able to do it. It's just the starting point of being set and aligned there.
Yeah, well, it makes sense that you could get really excited about a project, but they're not in a package in which you can deliver these things that you think about when they propose the idea. So it's kind of cool to be able to talk about what you might be able to do if they push it a little bit, just because you could have work that is that much better or that much, more creative, more outstanding, more innovative, more like eye-catching to the audience that you're trying to reach. So that's really, really cool to be able to, you know, I love the minds of creatives, like forming all of these different ideas in their heads that, might not even be able to be accomplished, but it's just exciting to be able to brainstorm, especially with a client that, it kind of shows that you care about the project because you're, excited about different ideas, even if that's not something that's in their scope at that moment.
Yeah, and even the, outside of just what the creative is, what is the narrative for the project? What is the focus of it? Are we selling something? Are we informing? And based on what that is, it can also get us excited because if you can relate to it, if it's something that, for example, we have a wonderful partner who she loves everything medical. And so any chance that she gets to work on any of the scripts that come through and she sees their medical, she's like, that's what I want. I want to work on that one. And immediately before any designs are done, she's already off, and so there's different ways that you can also get excited about the work, in the literal like particular project you're working on,
Mhm.
just by that. And so when you relate to it a little bit more, it's easier. And also, if you go into it from the mindset of I'm learning something, which is something that, we're very fortunate to have super complex ideas from all over the world that come through our process and we get to learn. And if you look at it through that lens and go, okay, what do I learn today? Like I'm showing up, I'm clocking in essentially. What can I learn today? And then explore the creative side after that. It's all creative. I know writers don't hate me, but it's just that whole process, it just depends on how you want to look at it.
Is there any client or potential client that you've come into contact with that this was like, it was a very difficult creative process? Obviously, I don't want you to out them because maybe you made a really great um, but what kinds of things make the process difficult, I guess, and how do you
Mm.
navigate them?
Yeah, that's a great question. Um, wow, there are so many variables that can happen, I'm thinking of one in my head and I kind of go, hey, that was one of the most difficult projects I worked on, not because of what the complexity of the final product was. It was the complexity of navigating the client. And give you an example of one particular case was we were working on the visual script, and we always send it ahead of time, and we always send them at least a blank visual script, and we kind of give them what the whole process is. We lay it all out for everybody, and to give them an option, we say, hey, you can meet with us, and we can talk about your ideas, maybe refine them, et cetera, and go from there. Or if you feel comfortable enough, you just lay it all out and you send it to me and we'll take a look. And um, this client was like, hey, we want to meet, which is great. We love that. And they had it, a week or so ahead of time so that way they could brainstorm. And then getting into the meeting, there were what you would call too many cooks in the kitchen. There were so many people on that call from their end. And what ended up happening was we were on the first box for over 30 minutes because it became just shooting ideas. And then somebody else from the same company would just shoot another idea or shoot theirs down. And then they would come, and it was just this whole back and forth. And so when you're in the position of the producer, you want to control that situation, of course, but you also want to be able to listen and kind of see what's going on and see how you can step in and help. And after a while, it just became to where we had to go, hey, it doesn't sound like we're aligned here. This isn't working. Why don't we hop off this call? Why don't you take another look at this offline? on your end. Let's do another call. And it may not have been taken well, but it was the right move to make because we weren't going anywhere. And that client, repeatedly, it was a lot of that, where there would just be multiple people jumping in, and then they would fire off, and all the work that you were doing just becomes, oh, now they don't like it. And you're trying to please so many people, which can become hard. And, we always set the expectation up front, like the one person we want to work with, ultimately for approvals. We'll work with 20 people if you have 20 people on your team, but when it comes to decision making, we got to have one person. One person tell me what to do. Otherwise, I'm going to do it wrong. 10 out of 10 times. And so it was a lot of that. I remember that project so vividly. It was just a lot of that. Every single deliverable it was just like pulling teeth, trying to get the responses and get things that you wanted. I don't think the end product did turn out great. I really like it. Could it have been better? Of course. It's just the hindrance that starts to come and crawl into there where, you want to inject, on our side, we want to inject what we feel creative. We want to be the experts. We want to let you know, like, hey, I think this would work a little bit better, but having all of that, and then it spills in, and it's just like, it just it starts running away from you a little bit, that project. And so you just have to, like, you got to roll with the punches at some point, and keep being firm, set those expectations. But man, was that one a tough one for sure.
I can imagine that. Eh, It's almost the opposite end of the coin of, like, having no direction at all. Like, you kind of let your mind run rampant of going through all of these different things that you possibly need just under a certain budget, whereas and I don't even know which one would be easier. I feel like the harder one would be too many voices because you can't really ever please one person. Whereas if they're so vague, they might not even know what they want, so they might be pleased with anything. But I think that having direction that's clear and concise is something that's so important for creatives because it's just that just makes the process so much more difficult. And it's nice that you were able to kind of create a structure to avoid that, to kind of require, like, one person that does the approval and all of that, because I think that, that'll definitely help down the line, I'm sure, since
Yeah.
having that happen.
Well, on the flip side, creatives do love free reign. We love you to come tell me, I got this one idea, uh, but as long as the expectation is they don't know what they want
Yeah.
and they're open, because what
Exactly.
what can happen is they come with no idea, and then you deliver this amazing piece of work, and they go,
They hate
"This is terrible. Yeah, I
Mhm.
don't even like this." Well, where were you when you handed it off to me? Where was that? And so creatives love to be able to create. And when there are no, if we don't get a visual script from a client, that's okay, because it gives us an opportunity to flex our muscles, our creative muscles, and go make something that, maybe the illustrator assigned to that project, they just have been, like, mulling on something for the last week, like, "Oh, this would look cool." And it gives them the opportunity to do that. But yes, when you get that, and then all of a sudden it's like, "Well, I don't like that. That's not what I wanted." And it's like, "Well, come on." Like, that's when it becomes
It's
very
weird.
difficult.
Yeah, do you have, is there I lost my train of thought. Is, like, when that happens, are you able to communicate with them like you gave us a lack of clear direction? Or is there a level of understanding of sometimes a client doesn't know what they want, but they know what they don't want? You know what I'm saying? Like, okay, actually, this is maybe a better question. Do you think that, if a client gave you a list of things that they didn't want, that would be better than being vague and then getting back, something that they didn't like?
I think yes and no.
Mhm.
We certainly ask for things that they don't want. That is actually one of the questions that we have. Even in the writing process, we're like, what don't you want? And from there, when we have that creative, that visual script kickoff or creative kickoff, if you will, we kind of go, what don't you want? And that is very helpful. Um, but the lack of what we do want. Now, again, in that first example of they truly are open, it's amazing. But when they are, we're not gonna give you what we want, and then we deliver, and then they go share that with 4 other people in their office, and they all go, "Well, this isn't what? Do this, do this." And then they come back and, that's what revision rounds are for.
Of course.
That's why they exist. But it is nicer if on that first one, you can get closer to what their vision is, even though they're not communicating that to you. And I always tell clients exactly that, hey, if you fill out this visual script, it does put us closer to what you want, and it allows us not to have to waste a revision round if needed. And so I think that kind of sets them up a little bit to actually take some time and go, okay, maybe we should pause, and I'll pass this around the office, and hey, maybe it takes a couple more days than we'd like, but if it saves time later on down the road, we'll take it any day of the week.
Yeah, because doing revisions is different than starting from scratch multiple times. That sounds like horrible. And so,
Very rare, but it can happen.
well, it's good to get that clear direction. Well, so even further along from that, do you have well, what processes do you have in place for collecting or incorporating feedback from clients after you finished a product?
So after the final is delivered,
Mhm.
so we have two things. One is internal, one is for them. So our producers do a debrief. We want to learn everything about and get more information on the client and what their experience, what they feel their experience was, and then we send to our clients just a simple. It is so simple, and we jokingly tell them it's so simple that it's just a quick form. Hey, like it literally has a box. Tell me what your experience was, and they can give a star rating. That way it's just like a quick visual. We know where their head was at.
Mm.
Um, but we want that feedback. We can't get better. We can get better only to our standards. We can't get better
Yeah.
to our client standards, which our clients are very important.
Mhm.
They're the reason we exist. So learning from them that's key. We also do on not every project, but a lot of projects on the marketing side, we try to reach out to them and get an experience from them as well, from not just a production side of things, but like marketing. Well, how did this help you? Like, what were you able to accomplish? Did this save you some time? All of those things that come around with the whole use case side
Mhm.
of things, not just the experience that it was in the production.
Well, that's really nice. I think that getting proper feedback is really important for growth. And I think that, it helps clear up some things of you might think that an experience is really good and that everything went well. And then you find out through a feedback form that it wasn't. And you had no idea because some people aren't comfortable with sharing their feelings. Um, which if you're having someone do work for you, you probably should try to be more comfortable with being able to do that, but, it gives you more of an idea of what you can do wrong in the process or how you can communicate more directly about certain things that maybe you thought you were previously, but you didn't realize was a problem.
Yeah, we actually just had an incident sort of like this fairly recently within the last couple of months where uh everything went well on production, of course, in our eyes. And it was amazing. And the producer was like, I'm so happy to work with them. They were amazing. And then the marketing team reaches out and they meet. And all of a sudden, she was kind of talking about some of her experiences, and she was like, "Well, I didn't really like this, and this was, sort of not ideal for the situation I wanted to be in, and all of these things." And from that, I was able to then go to the producer and go, "Okay, tell me what you felt here." And he's like, "I didn't feel any of that." And there is that disconnect of like, I don't want to tell the person maybe I'm working with directly every single thing. And we have people like that too. They're blunt, they're honest. We love that too. But to your point, it can happen later on down the line. And it's not something that we can catch. And it wasn't negative, like massively negative. It was just a couple process improvements, but it took until getting to the marketing team, all the way down the line before we knew, and we wouldn't have caught that had we not reached out to them because we went, "Oh, it's like your solution is perfect for, maybe a case study or wherever it may be."
Yeah, no, I really think it's important to have that um part of the process because I think that, you can leave a client feeling really good about the process, but you are not the client. So you can never really know what's going on in their heads. And I think there are a lot of people like that where they feel uncomfortable communicating certain things because the deliverables might be great, but the process might be a little less great, and that's not really, if sometimes those processes work well for some clients and not others, and that doesn't mean that there's something necessarily wrong with it either, but it's also nice to be able to, flag those specific instances so that you know that, "Oh, maybe we can change this in the future," and if it doesn't work, then maybe it was just that one person's experience, but it's nice to be able to know those things, and I think that feedback is crucial for being able to, fine tune all of those different processes that you do.
Yeah, without it, we'd be living in our own bubble, and we would think everything's hunky dory, and that would be it. We'd all, the end of the Grinch, we'd all be standing around the tree. That would be our company. And without being able to have that feedback, I don't believe a business can grow either. You can have short-term growth,
Mhm.
certainly, but if your goal is long-term growth, you've got to talk to your clients and understand what they need, what they want, what was wrong with your process, or what's right with your process. You have to understand all of that to be a long-term growing company.
Yeah, I like to think about clients as kind of part of the company. Like they're not obviously they're not your own employees or whatever it may be, but that you need them to be happy. Like, obviously, you need them to be happy because you want them to pay you, but you want them to be happy with the work that you're doing throughout the whole entirety of the process and not just the final result, because you can have a horrible experience and never go back to someone and never refer them, but they did a really good job on your project that you requested, and that doesn't do anything good for your company because they're not gonna say good things about you or, they might, but they might have such little to say. Um, so, yeah, I think that you constantly need to improve in order to be successful in especially the agency world because there's so many of us.
Yeah, well, it's a great way to actually look at it. I haven't ever phrased it like that before, but immediately what comes to my mind when you say that, you think about like the client just being not an employee, but like in your business. In retail, it's very, very common. They have what are called secret shoppers. Are you familiar with
Mm.
those?
Yes.
Yeah.
Had them at
So someone comes in, they have like basically a card, quote unquote, that of like a checklist of items they have to do. And they go into the store and they have to do all of those things, inconspicuously. And then at the end of it, you rate your experience at that store. You rate, how the employee was, who the person, at the register checking you out. You rate that whole entire experience. And you might have, arbitrary sake, you might have 1,000 people that come through your store every day. And once a month, one of those people, of the 30,000 that are coming through that store in a month, one person is like a shopper,
Mhm.
right? So the way that we're set up is every single client is a shopper. Every single client at any time could fill out a feedback form, but they give us that information of, oh, your floors were dirty. You need to mop them. Anything that could be in there, they're giving it to us. So I think that's a great way to look at it as well. And I know client being an employee doesn't exactly relate to client being a secret shopper,
Yes.
but
But they're
just
they're
the way
very
we really
similar.
connect them anyway. So
No, I think that you explained it probably even better than I did because employee isn't really the right word for it too either because you're not paying them. But but they are I think the best agencies or the most successful I've seen at least within their process is the idea that like the client is an extension of their agency, if that makes sense. And I hear that a lot. And I think that that provides a level of trust and care of like I care that this campaign is successful because you are an extension of us and therefore when you're successful we're successful kind of thing of not just okay well if we don't do it completely great I mean whatever we're still getting money from this process and it's like obviously no one wants that um so it's just thinking about it in a way of like this is part of you and not just someone that you're going to see and not see after a certain period of time and that like you want maybe looking at a client as if they are someone that you'd like to see again in a good way.
yeah, well, that's the whole point of that long term value in a client, and understanding that, and wanting the client for the long term. You know, New business is great. It's fantastic. If every single one of our clients was new business, I don't think it'd be sustainable. We'd always be on eggshells everywhere. So it's the people, the accounts, um, that really grow you to that next level, because if you can keep working those relationships with them, just like you said, and keep going on and on and on, and develop that and really be a partner for what they need. And for in our case, marketers, not every company has an in-house animation team, right? Very few, probably, in the grand scheme of things, if we're thinking all companies have a dedicated full-time, animation, team. And so being able to be that partner for whoever that client may be is super, super valuable. I mean, of course you want that. That's huge for your long-term growth as well. And so, yeah, I think that's a fantastic way to look at it.
Yeah, I think that that's the best way for that's the best way to look at a client, I guess, because it's not just like a person that you just see. You just like a person on the street or like a stranger. It's nice to be able to humanize them a little bit better for sure because they're people that want a certain result and that's just all they are, just like the agencies are. So I have one more question for you because we're a little over time. But that doesn't mean anything bad. That means that we're having a really good conversation. So I'm excited. But so um to get onto the side of kind of more video in which we haven't really touched on yet. How do you kind of stay ahead of trends in video and storytelling and marketing, animation technology, everything to remain not only competitive, but also a balance of not overwhelming yourself with being overloaded with content?
Yeah, what a great question, because it's a never-ending process. There is no one size shoe that fits all. Um, and it's a challenge. It's a true challenge, to be able to keep up with everything that's happening. The big challenge that is on everybody's mind is AI and what that does, and all of that. And my personal belief is, on that front, there's just nothing in animation, like 2D animation, which we do, that's so precise and so accurate, and you just have to have things. So, like, we don't have to necessarily, like, keep up as much with that. Now, we certainly want to. That's something to watch, and for anybody in any industry, honestly. But when it comes to other trends and other things that are going on, there are a few different ways. As lame as I used to think they were, webinars for different companies, different creative software companies, or in the industry, fantastic way to learn about new things when you may not be engrossed fully at that particular side of things. Um, Being able to watch those webinars is huge. I think of, companies like Adobe, which are crucial for the video industry in general, but for the animation industry and the tools that we use, being able to keep up with everything that those individual pieces of software can do. Illustrator, they just like announced something that's in beta where it's like resizing illustrations and it's doing it automatically, which is insane. It's
Mhm.
like blowing our minds because we're like, how much time can we save? What is that? Which means, oh, we can turn out a product faster. Perfect. Let's like keep an eye on that. Let's start learning more about it and what the capabilities are, what the limitations are as well, which is important. But being able to get online, you got to get online and you got to be able to view content. You have to look at not just your competitors, but just people in the industry that you're not competing with. I cannot remember the company off the top of my head, but there is somebody that I follow on LinkedIn, and they're at this animation company, and they're doing things for like sports teams, and they get to do things on like the big billboards, um, the Megatron, as you'd call it, and have like animations up there and like getting to watch what they do and like they put out because they're like churning it every week, and I see like the different ways they're doing that work and what the animation looks like and different techniques that they're using and being able to see that, being able to go in through your own industry or industries that are similar to you and just see what they're doing. That's like
Yeah.
important. Be able to set time aside to do that because it's super easy for us to go, I don't have time for that. Like I can't do that.
Yeah.
Uh, but you better have time for it because if you don't do it, you're going to be lost.
Oh
You're
yeah,
going to
it's
be lost.
important.
You're going to be left behind.
You have to
So
stay updated.
absolutely. So just a couple different ways. I mean, of course, conversations with people like you. We I have monthly conversations with a few different people that we get to talk about industry trends, and which is the nerdy part of my job. It's like oh, what are you doing? Like, "Ooh, what technique did you use here? Like, how did you get this to work?" I have monthly conversations set up for that, which is amazing. Being able to find some people, again, kind of in that industry that you trust, you're not competing, directly against, and sometimes maybe you are, but you're not like stealing each other's businesses. You have great relationship, and you can just talk and figure it out. And yeah, I think that aspect is on top of the other two that I kind of mentioned uh, is probably the most key, being able to just talk to people.
How do you manage doing this without doing it too much?
On one hand, my monthly meetings, they're set in stone. Like I know exactly what that's going to be. You can't always predict maybe a webinar. Maybe you can if it's going to be far enough in advance. Sometimes those just pop up, and I think I had one a couple weeks ago, or last week, where it was like an hour and a half, of my day that I had to go sit and watch, but it was so super valuable for me
Mhm.
because I'm learning so much. And maybe I don't learn the entire hour and a half. Maybe I get 30 minutes out of it. Um, but having two screens helps with that too. AKA, I'm not paying a ticket price necessarily to go there in person and be at a convention center, which you could clearly do. But yeah, that's the beauty of being able to have those online and learn things that way as well. So being able to just set some of those, but yeah, you can't predict all of it.
Mm.
Um, just roll with the punches.
Well, I think that's beautiful. I think that's great advice for being able to do that, and manage it because all of the things that you gave as examples are specific time slots in your day. And maybe it's something that maybe less predictable, like a webinar that you just find out about that week or something like that. But at least you know exactly what it's going to be so that you can schedule it in. Whereas I think a lot of people are consuming content in a more um maybe organic way isn't exactly the way to phrasing it, but like through social media or through going through just scrolling. And I think that that's something that's really difficult for people to manage, because there's no end, it's just forever. Um, and for marketing, especially social media related, is something that I think people have a difficult time keeping that corralled. And so it's nice to hear that you have very specific strategic ways in which you do it that don't get in the way of your work, but also your normal life outside of work. Because I think content consumption is, or overconsumption is a bigger problem now, obviously, than it was, probably even a few years ago.
Yeah, well, I'm very fortunate. I'm not a social media person. It's just the way that I am. Ju- It's that there's just not a lot on there. Now, there is a side of it where, yes, I want to learn, and I want to see what is out there. But as far as, yeah, I'm very fortunate. The doom scrolling does not, it doesn't attack me. But you're 100% right, though. It does, and it can easily in a content driven world, especially for a business that makes content, it can be so easy to just do that, and get lost in it. And you're now working not 40 hours, now you're working 60. But part of that is you think you're just doing it on your own time, but then it's just you start blurring so many lines, and yeah, it's not healthy. So yeah, I have to have like those times where that's when I get to go learn. And if somebody wants to throw something my way randomly, cool. Like, I'm not inundated with it all the time. So it's much more healthy for me. So
Well, I appreciate you sharing that process because I think that that'll be very helpful for people that need that kind of structure in having those kind of avenues to learn more. And it's very difficult to either make no time for it or make too much time for it. So having like things that you can um schedule into your schedule, that are very finite, I think is very important for people, especially in the agency world, or really even any business related world that you're doing marketing or you're doing creative work. But yeah, so thank you for sharing. This is all the time we have for today, but I really appreciate everything that you shared with me today. I appreciate you coming on. I think that our audience will learn a lot from this episode, so I appreciate you sharing all of your knowledge with us.
yeah, absolutely. I appreciate you stopping me talking because I just would keep going for another 6 hours probably. So
I'm similar, it's okay.
yeah, it's no, I appreciate having me and being able to talk to you about this. And yeah, I do hope somebody learns something, uh, and be able to take away from it. So
Thank you, and thank you everyone for watching or listening. I hope that you do get to learn from all of these podcasts like I do, and tune in for the next one to be able to do the same. Thank you so much for joining me today, and have a lovely day.
You've been listening to Fully Managed, brought to you by Penji. Check out the show notes to learn more about today's guest, and to learn more about Penji, the human-first creative subscription service, head over to penji.co. And by the way, if you're still listening, it would mean the absolute world to us if you were to share this podcast with a friend, and of course, subscribe.